You're listening to The Authenticity Show, where you get to eavesdrop on great conversations about health, creativity, and the quest for excellence. Your hosts are Carlos Casados and Satch Purcell. Our guests today are J.P. Durand and Liza Carbé from the world music band Incendio. Wow, I don't even know where to begin with this one, guys. This was such an amazing conversation that I really didn't edit this one very much. I just kind of let it roll, and they go all over the place, and it's beautiful. This show kind of sums up what the original idea was for the Authenticity Show, just to have really great, intelligent, inspired conversations that like-minded people would be thrilled to just be a fly on the wall and eavesdrop on. And that's what we have here. So this is kind of a long one. It's about 2 hours. So settle in and listen up.
Good evening, Satch Purcell.
Oh, good evening, Carlos Casados.
Gosh, this is going to be fantastic. Do you know why?
I think I have a pretty good idea why, and I'm going to interject something here.
All right.
Is that you have always been a cool people magnet. All the years I've known you, you've always just met and made connections with extraordinarily interesting people, and I'm always amazed at how well I resonate with them. And I think you've done it again.
Thanks, man. That's awesome.
He's done it again. You know,
and why is it that it's always so amazing? Like each one of these shows, I feel like right before we begin, you just get there's this lead in, and there's this sense of like kind of an inner expectation, because I just know that it's going to be amazing. You can feel the vibe. You can feel there's something in the air. Or there's just, I don't know what it is, but I always feel excited about it before we even begin. Yeah,
me too. And I'm feeling that same potential for the creation of very, very good stuff.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
Well, we have two special guests here tonight. They are two of three members of the band Incendio Band. So we have Liza and JP. Liza and JP, welcome to the show. Welcome to Authenticity.
Thank you.
I'm really glad to have you guys here.
Yeah, we're excited.
When I met you guys recently, I YouTubed to try to find some music, because I really wanted to get a sense of how you play. And I was just struck with how sort of uplifting, there's all these Latin beats and all these things that you guys were doing. I really was excited to share it with Satch later on that evening. I played some for him. I think we were doing weightlifting that night or something.
Yeah.
Oh, perfect.
But I said, had a great conversation earlier today. We're going to have an upcoming couple of guests, and I played some for you, Satch.
Remember that? Absolutely. And, I'd like to report that when I am at my desk, I always put on some kind of mood music in order to change my brainwaves into the kind of brainwaves that I want for whatever work I have to do. And I had Incendio on all day today at my desk, and I found my brainwaves to be joyous and energetic, yet peaceful and calm. And
that's perfect.
And that's what I got from it. And so thank you for making my work day pleasant and productive today.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and it was one of those days I needed it today. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
That's
calming
what we want
influence.
our music to do, for sure.
Yeah, very good.
Satch, you did go back to play today, didn't you? The playground?
I did. Yeah, this is a new concept, and I'm going to go ahead and share it with our wonderful guests. I'm just coming off a little vacation, and yesterday was my first day back off my vacation, and I made a conscious decision that I no longer call it work. Every day when I get up and leave the house, I say, all right, I'm off to the playground.
Oh, I think that's brilliant.
It's the playground,
Yeah.
right? And this was inspired by an Alan Watts quote that struck me.
Well, you should
on my Alan Watts app.
Well, if you want to be really accurate, you should probably smoke as much marijuana as he smoked before saying it.
Yeah, I probably should.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay,
just to be historically
break out the
accurate.
pot.
I think the three words that we both keyed in were Alan Watts app.
I know,
Did I know
I
there was
love
an
that.
Alan Watts app?
I have an Alan Watts app.
That's fantastic.
And so what happens is every day I set the time, and every day at 10:30, I get a little bit of wisdom, but it comes, of course,
get that.
after the advertisement. Man.
Awesome.
Okay. Something else. Yeah. So my new attitude about going to the playground every day instead of going to work is inspired by this Alan Watts quote that goes like this: "Man suffers only because he takes seriously what the gods made for fun." And so
brilliant.
I had to incorporate that in my life. And so actually yesterday I changed my password at work to something that will remind me of this every day. So when I log into the computer, it cues my memory that this is what I'm doing now.
Maybe you should share that
That's
with everybody
brilliant.
who's listening.
Maybe
that
I will.
If they feel
yeah.
like hacking you,
so
they
all
can.
my students can get into the computer and
Absolutely.
get the exam
Mess with the
questions,
grades,
right? Yeah, right. But yeah. So work is now the playground.
No, I think that's brilliant. And I'm always amazed at synchronistic events because in the past 4 days, I've had several other people say the same thing, that they've done transformable vocabulary to in things that they didn't find joyful and just changed the wording. And now you're saying the same thing. It's really interesting.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
w-
great.
What
That's
you
great.
say about anything inside your head changes how you feel about it for sure. I mean, your thoughts do change your emotions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With my clients, I always tell them it's home play, not homework.
Yeah, home
Yeah.
play. That's beautiful. Yeah. And you know, as you may or may not know, I'm an occupational therapist. And occupational therapists are famous for promoting this idea that the main job of childhood is play. And that is a child's job. The child's job is to play because that develops all the skills that they're going to use into their life for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
So why stop playing just because it's time to get a job, right?
Good
I mean,
point.
because we develop by playing. And I think this conversation, this word has gotten started in a nice way here because you two are musicians, and that's what musicians do. They play, right?
That's true.
So do you play?
We do. We do play. There's a lot of practicing that goes before we play, but we do play. When we do play, we try to bring a sense of joy and excitement and inspiration to our performances and to our recordings.
Has there ever been a time when the hard work of practice or the business side of being musicians has made you sort of lose that playfulness and you needed to rediscover it?
Oh, yeah. Oh, sure. Sure. The business side. Yeah. I mean, there's been so many stages of the business side. It's definitely had its downs. The business is always difficult. And, well, I would say since Incendio and the way the business has changed, and that's sort of a double-edged sword, but I think in doing our original music and the way things, some people would disagree, but musicians now are very empowered. There's a lot we can do for ourselves. Where we used to have to give away our power to people, and you hear that through history, you know, people losing their songs, losing their joy of their music because of something they signed. And not having the power to take control of their music and touring. And now with the internet and things that are happening, if you want to embrace that, you can. It's a lot of extra work, but at the same time, you can do it.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's ups and downs in everything.
Sure. Yeah.
I have found that we've been doing this for about 20 years, and we've got 10 albums, and it's been a roller coaster of everything that you can imagine. The one thing that the band is always, the band is basically led by three fairly ambitious people that have learned to get along with each other. Her and I probably a little more closely because we're husband and wife. But one thing I am conscious of is the notion that a couple of years ago I was like, it takes. My angst engine runs pretty high, and I said I can't sustain that and continue to do what I do within the band, which is I take care of booking and a lot of logistical stuff. I do a lot of the work involved, so that we can have and obviously Jim and Liza contribute quite a bit, but that's kind of the thing I do. And in order to continue hammering that booking thing, it takes a lot of anxiety, a lot of waiting, a lot of follow-up. I recently found out that, and this is going to be humorous to people listening, but a lot of what I do is basically be a salesman to the band, because when you're trying to book and be an agent, you're a salesman. And I'm coming to grips recently with the notion that as much as I don't want stress or anxiety to be a motivator, it has to be. So that eternal struggle of finding the work-play balance and recontextualizing, your work to say that it's play, all of that has really come into pass the last couple of years because I was like, I can't sustain this anymore. And now I'm also coming to the realization that there has to be some component of that. And how do you manage that in a more responsible way to be good to yourself and to continue to be good to the people around you? There's a strong service component, and I've noticed that in terms of you guys and the books. The undercurrent of everything, of a lot of things you're talking about too, I think, is when you learn to play, you do eventually learn that when everybody plays together as a kid, everybody has a better time, and you develop your friendships, and you do that. And the more closed off you become, or the more you're subject to abuse from parents, or you don't get to go through that stretch of playing, and you don't develop the skills that are necessary to develop, like, okay, if this thing happens, this bad thing happens, how do I deal with it? How do I support them? If this bad thing happens, how do I deal with it? And how do I support them? You can't do that if you're drowning yourself. So I think all of and if you choose to be a musician, or you choose to be a creative person, that notion of service, that notion of support, and the notion of playfulness, all of them go hand in hand. And then as you get older, hopefully you learn new skill sets and new ways to do that. So the things that you're talking about and bringing up, like right off the bat, are super, like a very strong undercurrent to what we do with Incendio, and at least what I try to contribute on my end to the band.
You said that stress is, in a way, or the anxiety of it, is necessary. It's kind of like having a fire under your ass, right? It causes you to make a choice. You got to do something, make decisions, take action, be responsive to what's happening. How have you created the quality of playing lava tag? Hot lava tag, right? You remember when you were a kid and there's, the ground is hot lava and you got to jump from place to place and you're getting chased.
Oh, yeah.
And relating that to having a fire under your ass. Do you sometimes motivate yourself by doing something in your head to make it fun, so that you're doing this difficult thing, this stressful thing, but making it fun for yourself?
You know what I think I found is, and Liza's been so helpful with me on this. Jim too. I'm not married to Jim, and I live with Liza, so but the support from both sides. It's
the 21st century.
Is the notion of choosing my battles, because I think and to me, I come in like anxiety riddled about all the aspects. How are we going to complete the album? How are we going to book? Once we book, what are the logistics? How do we get the van? How do we rent the instruments if needed? If we're going to drive, how much can we carry and not destroy the van? And I think those things used to occupy more time in my head. So I've gotten better at determining what I can control and what I can't. And it seems like really obvious, but you have to do it like anything else, like occupational therapy or anything anyone may do. You learn more intimate ins and outs over time, and you decide, what's a forest fire and what's a cigarette in an ashtray. Which one are you really gonna? And you just can't blanket apply anxiety or ambition to everything. Especially as you get older, you have to learn where your energies are best directed. And part of that is listening too. If you have bandmates that are saying you're getting too stressed out, you need to calm down. It's not that important. Or you get better at delegation. Or you simply say that that it's just not that important to do work every night on the tour. Leave a night off.
Right.
Go to a restaurant, sit and watch possibly the dumbest show you've ever watched in your life, and enjoy that. Well, I'll watch a wildlife documentary. Take yourself out of the fight all the time.
But I will say,
Cool your jets.
with you enjoy people. And so to call people and call the booking agents, you are so personable. You really ask a lot about these people. And so there's an immediate sharing, even with strangers. And that makes it more fun for you. For somebody that doesn't inquire about that person and get friendly with
It's
that
like
person,
pulling teeth, sure.
it's not as much fun.
So it's also like what works for your skill set. That's true. I do, like talking to people, and you're able to develop promoters, a relationship with the promoters over time. And we have some that are friends that we have just gone back to for years. Lynn Cooper up at Mill Pond, Bruno Nasta at the National Gallery of Art in Washington, D.C. Our friends at the Mock Chunk Opera House, Dan Hugo. So those guys that we keep going back to and having a relationship. So if you look at it at the long view, it's like I'm going to forge relationships, and we're going to make a little more money and a little more money, and keep building the audience and all that. And that's like when you come out of school as a musician, this is also part of a larger thing where it's like nobody teaches you this stuff. If you're ambitious, nobody teaches you necessarily where to direct or how to direct the ambition. You can be a great guitar player, a great singer, a great bass, but if nobody teaches you how to actually get work, we have one person we know is like, and we told him, listen, I thought it was being supportive, and this is also learning what to say and what not to say. I said, well, you finished your album now. Now is really the time to go and promote that album. And we basically sent them into a year-long depression. I had no idea, because their whole thing was like, and it's understandable. Your first album, their whole thing was, I'm going to finish the album and it will be my vision, and that's great. But you also want people to hear your album. You're not going to have a career, so somebody needs to take you by the hand and go, oh my gosh, there's a whole other realm. So part of that is just kind of also, as a young person, being open to opportunities. And also not feel like you're being taken. It takes radar. It takes support of other friends. What do you think? They don't seem on the up and up. Maybe you shouldn't take it up on him. Especially now in this environment where things happen so fast. Things can go viral in an instant. You can meet the right person in an instant. You can meet the wrong person in an instant. It's weird. It's interesting. Everything's moving so fast.
I was going to say, to echo what Liza had said about you, from the performances I've seen of you, on YouTube, and just the moment you walked in the door, I got a really nice impression of human connection and just sort of a lovingness that emanates from you. And I really enjoyed that, and I can see it coming out when you perform. And I can see why you're the guy who does the bookings and promotes things. Like, for sure. I know. I'm sure it's a spit ton of work, but I'll bet you do it with as much love as you can. I can sense that.
He does. He connects with people, and then he shares too. We've really found that you're calling to get a gig, but then you become friendly with the person, and it's like, well, we don't really want someone like you we're looking for. Oh, well, we know somebody like that, and then we start passing on other musicians to them. And so you start sharing, and then you become more than just somebody that's calling for a gig. You're recommending somebody else and helping them out as well. So it becomes more of a give and take.
Like a reciprocal thing.
Absolutely.
And we got really fortunate in a way to start doing what we were doing at possibly the dumbest time to ever start thinking about doing it, which was as the old music business paradigm started, kind of crumbling and falling apart. Napster kind of started everything, and the computer and the internet kind of changed everything. And at that time, which was 99, 98, when it was really just beginning to come into everybody's home, but we all had email addresses probably in 92, 93, whatever. But as it became ubiquitous, we made some decisions that were not conventional at the time, which is like even 20 years ago, most people doing kind of instrumental music, and there were not a ton, were single artists as opposed to bands. There was Jesse Cook or Struenzer Frog, two guys, but still it was like a single entity, or like two guys or whatever, as opposed to a band. The concept of the band, went out with the Who and Zeppelin. It's very rare. I mean, that's why we love the Foo Fighters. So like, there's still a band. It seems like Grohl drives everything, but it's a bunch of guys that are supportive of the entire unit. And when you're doing one, it's not the same. So in that sense, we were an anomaly. In the sense that too, when everybody's scrambling for a gig, you're like, the going wage at a club has been $50, $75 a man.
It's terrible
for like 40, 50 years.
Yeah.
So we're like, we need to do this on our own. We need to get out of Los Angeles and now it seems to have been the right thing, because clubs are, I don't know where, besides School of Rock and a handful of other places, I don't know where a young person can actually learn how to interact and play with other people. It's not as easy as it used to be, right? To go to a club.
Although we did see a cool jam session tonight. That was very cool.
So nice. There was that. It's like, okay, so why would you do that when everything is crumbling? And so in a way, it's just been kind of lasting until like CDs died out, and then downloads came up of the MP3s, and now it's all converting to streaming, and it's like you're on a bucking bronco all the time. So that's another thing is learning, especially in the long game, is learning to just stay on top of the horse. You know, it's been and that can be fun and crazy and exhausting and exasperating and completely exhilarating. So that's where that notion of kind of becoming calm and kind of trying to take a long view is so critical, because you're going to absorb a lot of in any job, you're going to absorb a lot of body blows through the course of that. If you kind of watch the long game, keep yourself healthy, keep yourself with a professional attitude. I think Liza's business sense and dreaming it has been really key to that. Jim is so focused and really, really great at making good business decisions that for the band in the long run. So everybody has a good role to play to keep the ball in play. And if you're like a single musician, that's a little harder unless you really hook up with the right manager or the people around you that can support. And so,
but then with deciding to take it out of Los Angeles and start touring, we really found a whole new group of places to play, and people that were like Lisa Lynn and like Lau Tizer, that were doing the independent thing, and a whole new market, doing festivals, doing cultural art centers, doing art fairs, doing concerts in the park. There's a whole other world out there of performing where they're
it's not the American Idol world.
Yeah, and it's not really underground, although to a degree it is. People that are doing festivals, and there's festivals, house concerts.
It's off the major media map, but I mean,
there are huge music fans out there, and you can make a really good living, and you play for people that love music. You know, you're not just going into a club and trying to get people there. There's people, they're already there at festivals. They're there to hear music, to have a communal feeling for 3 days and interact with the artisans, and there's so much of that stuff out there.
The festivals.
These people are going to see Joe Craven. They're going to see Larkin Poe. They're going to see Tommy Emmanuel.
So when we discovered that, it just put us on a whole new trajectory where we could go out and play and book concerts and just find a whole new world to play in.
You know, it sort of reminds me of actors that think they could only be happy if they're acting in Hollywood.
Exactly.
Whereas you can be a wonderful actor just enjoying your craft.
Yes.
At a community theater.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
And teaching and directing and imparting, and sharing the passion with somebody, becoming their mentor. There's a huge part of it, and this is kind of a back thing to the whole notion of finding your tribe. I think is so critical.
Right.
To any endeavor that you're going to be passionate about, is finding the right people. And it sounds very obvious, but it can be really hard to do, especially if you're a person that's coming into your 40s, 50s, 60s, and you find this new passion, whether it be writing or whether it be Reiki or whether it be it's something of service that is in the healing or energetic world, and you don't know any of these people. You know you have a gift, but you don't know who to share it with. It's like once you find that group of people, it's incredibly empowering and gives you a lot of confidence. But it's not the first step is the risk is to step outside of your comfort zone and say, oh boy, who knows this stuff? Where do I go to check it out? And so now I think we try to be very supportive of people and trying to make that first step and go, try this, try that,
and encourage them. We've got a lot of people that come over and say, how do you book the band? How do you do this? How do you get royalties? And, we'll say, come over. We'll tell you what we do.
You share the wealth
of
wisdom.
Absolutely.
That's actually going to be a
experience.
program that we're going to be launching after this, once this CD is released.
Excellent.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
That's great.
People
That's
need
great.
to know that.
Yeah.
And we found it out by just doing it. But, there's so many things that we said, God, if we'd known that, it would have saved us a lot of time and effort.
Yeah.
But, we had to figure that out on our own.
The critical question, this is part of this Thrive and Survive in the Music Business curriculum that we're going to be doing. And the capper, at least for me, was a year ago. And I won't name the person only because I don't remember who it was. It could have been any of a number, but it was like a really fairly well known musician, like an instrumental like backup artist that plays with all these different people. And we're just talking, and we've known him for a while. And it's just, so what's your publishing company, or how do you publish? He goes, my publishing company's ASCAP. And I go, we both were like, that's not a publishing company. It's a performing rights organization. They pay you your royalties. And we're like, he doesn't actually know. He's been doing this, and he's been backing up these really successful people, and he doesn't know.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay.
So you can be of service there, and
Absolutely.
it's mutual.
In a very
Yeah,
fundamental way.
absolutely.
Yeah. And it was like, okay,
There's so many aspects of the music business. That's the thing.
Yeah.
And it can be so confusing. And if you're only a side person, if you're only doing this or you're only doing that, you lose.
and you're curious about.
Well, if you're not, but suddenly this stream ends for you. Maybe you were a signed artist. And so that record company took care of everything for you. And now you're no longer signed. And now you're out on your own. And now you want to do it, but you don't know how.
Right.
Somebody took care of it for you. So you're still in your mind thinking, I got to go get signed and somebody's going to get my royalties for me and they're going to take care of it. Well, you don't have that anymore. And you don't have a clue how to do it. And you think your publishing company is ASCAP or BMI. It's like, holy shit.
Yeah.
You're in a bad position.
Wow.
Right.
And musicians need to be empowered, and you can be. I just think for too long musicians think, oh, I just want to create, and I don't know this, but you can, and you need to. And there's people forever like Dali, he was brilliant, and he used his craziness to market himself.
Yeah.
He
built
his
his
brand. Marketer, yeah.
He totally built his brand.
He
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
He built his brand. He
It's a
goes,
strong
people think
brand.
I'm crazy.
People still know it.
Good.
Yeah.
Let's play on that.
Yeah. So some of the things that you guys were talking about reminded me to ask you, have you read Tribal Leadership by Dave Logan?
No, I haven't.
Okay. He's an amazing person, and he wrote a book about, building a tribe and what is a tribe and, what are the stages of thought and learning along the way. And one of the things he talked a lot about, because he had studied, Toyota and Google and, various hospitals and Zappos and all these different companies. And he was comparing and contrasting, GM and talking about recessions and which companies did well in the recessions and which ones surged. And he was talking a lot about this new model, of cooperation, synergy, linking up with people with similar or even sometimes the same skills or the same offering, and not pushing them away and trying to sort of compete, but actually bringing them together and saying, how can we help you? How can we create mutual survival, not mutual destruction? Because in this world, everybody is sort of, dog eat dog and fighting against one another. But it's the musicians and the artists that are not getting, in a way, enough credit. And a lot of these people, we were talking about how cheap it is to hire a musician at a bar. It hasn't changed in many years.
Cut your own
and it
throat.
Sucks. I mean,
It
to be
does.
honest, as a music lover, a music appreciator, it bothers me because, I have my friends, Oliver and Danny, all these people that really work hard to be what they are. And, there are these gigs where they're not really getting their full due, the credit.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
When you guys do what you're doing by bringing people together and sharing, in a way, you're bolstering the industry completely by doing it, and yourselves.
Well, I think that's so important. And I think with some of these groups where I met you, these entrepreneurship types of groups, they're encouraging people and they're supporting each other. Mm-hmm. And I think when we start feeling like we're in constant conflict with one another or competition,
mm-hmm.
that we stifle everything. It's like there is enough. to
Right.
go around.
Right.
There really is.
We have to have an abundance mindset, not a poverty mindset.
Yes.
Yeah,
and
like-
when you constantly think that's the only gig.
It's
you
not
know?
scarcity.
Yeah,
it's
there's scarcity.
abundance.
Yeah, and that
Yeah.
you make more things happen. You create another gig. Maybe where there wasn't a gig, you create, like what's happening now, this thing with house concerts is huge. Because people started going, and people do that to us all the time. They go, oh, what's a house concert? That sounds fun. Next thing we know, they've got a house concert series. You know, and people are doing that all over the world. And what's so cool about that is it's community. People bring people into their house. They have maybe a potluck or they make food, and they start meeting people in the area, or people come all over come from all over to meet them. And suddenly you're meeting different people, and the artist has people just listening to them, selling their CDs, and it's a great environment. And that just came up out of nowhere, out of the need.
That's cool.
The one thing we noticed many years ago, we've known a lot of rock guitarists, and you meet every time at NAMM, and it's a fraternity of people, and it's an enjoyable group of guys. You talk about the gigs, or you have a friend who's a trumpetist, or you have a friend who's a percussionist, right? And especially guitars, there's a camaraderie of like, I talked about with Oliver, it's like, are you a Strat guy? Are you a Les Paul guy? And there's this commonality, and we just talk about stuff. When we first started this, generally Spanish guitarists, particularly young guys, we know didn't really have that. There wasn't as many of us. We actually had one guy who's now a friend. I'm pretty sure it's the same guy. We were labeled as Novo Flamenco, and that was a genre when we first started. Just kind of, I haven't heard it in a long time. I don't think it exists anymore. So we were labeled as that. One of the first shows where I had kind of joined the band officially. He sat in front of the band cross-armed like this, just waiting to see us bring it, waiting to see a falsetto, waiting to hear like real flamenco, which we don't play. We don't play flamenco. That's the thing with Incendio. It's more like a Latin jazz band or
like
world
a
band.
fusion. It's a fusion.
And I would say about 10 or 15 years ago, we were very conscious of the fact that, while other genres were getting along, that Spanish guitarists, particularly here in LA, still carry themselves like gunslingers. It was like, you play with your distortion and your Marshall. I'm going to be here with my nylon string, and this is like my take on Paco de Lucia, and that's great. And that was a very lonely person. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
and we were all that way. We were out in our little like cul-de-sacs of I do fusion or I do jazz, whatever. And we had thought about it a little, but all credit and love to guys like Ben Woods and Luis Villegas and other friends and Berto that had the same idea where it's like, why are we like separate from this when we're all like, some level of starving, or people aren't hearing our music. Now more people are hearing the music, but a while ago it was like, how are we going to break? And the only way to do it is like kind of like support each other, compare notes. You're a great flamenco player. You're a great soloist. You have amazing technique. You play great classical. Liza plays great classical. It's like, let's look at our commonalities. Hey, are you available? Then it becomes, are you available for that gig? Oh man, can you sub for this other thing that I'm doing? Hey, I heard about this great show that you can do. And all of a sudden, it's a more of a communal thing of the people that survive and want to be supportive. There are other people that are very much outside of that circle, and that's fine, But for within the people that are circle, Jose Garcia, Berto up in Oregon, it's a really nice group of people that we can commiserate on our ups and downs. And then you get to talk about, family and how that intersects with career. If you have kids, how they've intersected. And all of a sudden, it's a real conversation. It's not just about what pick you're using, what strings you're using or whatever, but it's actual real life. And then that gets suffused back into your music.
Yes, beautiful. As you were describing that, I couldn't help but get the image of the difference between individual cells trying to make it on their own versus an organism.
Yeah,
right.
It's so
it's,
true.
Because like what you're talking
Absolutely.
about, like this guy can play this technique and that person can play that really well. And it's sort of like these cells over here, they know how to make insulin, and these other cells, they know how to detoxify poisons, and they should work together and make an organ system. You know what I mean? And now this can sustain life.
Absolutely.
You can have experiences.
Creating
and you can
That's
do
exactly.
and create and change things.
That's so true.
That was beautiful. Yeah.
Lisa, from our conversation a few weeks ago that I was headed to Nashville. Well,
Yeah.
I had a great time. And one of the things I did some music tours there, and I went to the Grand Ole Opry, and, it was very inspiring to be around just to basically be immersed in an environment that had so many appreciators of music around me. I mean, just walking down the main streets and visiting all the honky tonks or walking past the honky tonks and hearing all this blaring music coming out into the streets where they're not shy about letting it rip. I mean, it's just
That's so
boom,
great,
just
isn't
crank it
it?
out and it goes right into the streets. It's not like here where there are all these city ordinances preventing that. There, they expect it, they want it. Everybody's, having a good time, and you went to these classical places, Tootsie's, and these famous places where like Willie Nelson and Johnny Cash and Hank Williams, all these people, lived in the upstairs and played for their room and board, and it's just so cool to see all that classic stuff, and then to visit all the music recording companies and touring all that. But it's so infused into life there. I can really understand why they call it Music City.
Yeah.
Have you guys visited or performed in Nashville?
We were in Memphis several times. We played in Memphis. Did we play in that? I've played in Nashville
once
with some other people.
Okay.
But I've never played in Nashville with Incendio. I don't,
Is Memphis?
We had a standing invitation to play at the Bluebird quite a few years ago. It's a matter of touring and making and the expenses and make sure. And Memphis, for whatever reason, ended up being more of a place that we wound up probably because of Levitt Pavilions, because we play all those.
The Levitt, and we played, what was that?
The Center for Southern Folklore. We played a little club called Mamas.
We played that.
The Germantown Performing Arts Center.
Yeah. I don't know. We did a bunch of stuff in Memphis, and
So is it a similar vibe where you go there and there's just infused with music appreciation?
Yeah.
Oh,
It
absolutely.
is. It's crazy.
Nashville is a little more country in the Grand Ole Opry and a great music community, a great guitar community.
But
Memphis is more blues and rhythm and blues, like Sun, Stax, the Reverend Al Green's
Stax.
place.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
Graceland.
fun.
Like, so when you were talking about that, I was thinking of all the cities that really had, they don't. Saying a music culture is almost too limiting because music is so interwoven into the fabric of the history of the city. And I think music in that regard is kind of unique. If you have a visual medium like art, people can go to, Metropolitan Museum of Art or LACMA and you sit and you engage with the art, and there's a whole visual medium, and it's curated by people that have enough money to have a museum and all that kind of stuff. Same with, you have all these books here, and you have a community of people that will know who whatever author is, and there are people who love them in Minneapolis or New York, and you walk to Book Soup or you walk to another place and you talk about them, or you know about City Lights in San Francisco and all that. But music is part of the culture in a way that those other mediums are not, I don't think, infused into the culture of a city that way. It's just not the same, because you walk down New Orleans, you can hear, or Memphis for that matter, you can hear music all the time in the streets being played anywhere.
Saturday night, was it Saturday night? There
my gosh,
there was some,
Saturday night.
I think it's Saturday night in Memphis. So everything is open, and you're walking, the music's pouring out of the street.
Right.
Onto the street.
Blues,
And
6 sets a night.
I
hip
love it.
hop,
I love
blues,
it.
country, and everybody's just walking around. It was crazy. It was so much fun. And there was one guy, what's his name?
Richard Johnson.
Richard Johnson. Unbelievable. So he was a one-man band. So we're walking up and we're watching him play like some kind of white hillbilly. He's barefoot and he's playing drums, and he's playing guitar, and he's singing.
So he's kicking kick drum with one foot.
And with the front part of his foot, and the hi-hat with the back part of his foot.
And somehow hitting snare kind of at the same time. He was doing this thing with his feet. And then he was playing like a big cigar box guitar, which is like this, just kind of not a homemade thing, because there are people that make that now, but it's basically got 2 strings and a plank, right?
Wow.
He's got a big SWR bass amp behind him and like a Fender Vibroverb. He's got a bass amp and a guitar amp behind him, and he's playing slide, and he's getting the bass from the bass thing, kind of like a White Stripes, kind of simultaneous to him being out doing it. But he was playing amazing slide guitar, and with just this huge sound behind him, and it was running on generators in the middle of the street.
Wow.
Singing
And he was
his
literally
ass off.
singing his ass off, playing like basically guitar and this at the same time, just doing this groove, and it was loud and it was crazy, and he
Killed it.
clearly was
So great.
not like, he was out of his mind.
Wow.
But it was the most amazing, like, we see stuff like American Idol or all this other stuff that it's fine. People can enjoy that, whatever. But this guy
blew it away, huh?
blew everybody
So
away
real.
and clearly was like, didn't seem particularly stable and could be kind of dangerous. Right. But he had a gift like
Channeled
which you don't
psychosis.
see all the time. And that's that, the people that we all appreciate, whether it's Jaco Pastorius or Hendrix or any Joni Mitchell, a lot of them.
They're right
A
at
little
the
bit of
edge.
crazy.
They're right at the
A little
edge.
bit of crazy.
Yeah.
And so, sometimes you sit back and you go, thank you, lucky stars, I'm not a genius. I'm just, I'm trying to be just good and do great music, because there's a certain level of torture with being the one that kind of takes the rest of us through those dimensional portals and gets us to a different place.
It's like when you're saying cells, I always think of those like the free radical
right.
cells that take you out.
And you know that guy was probably cheating, though, right? He had multiple personality disorder, so he was channeling actually an entire band, and he didn't have to do it all on his
So
own.
you're saying he was really a full band unto himself.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
just all under one roof.
But that's definitely a cell I want in my organism. That's a
Hell
highly
yeah, hell yeah.
specialized cell that can
was
do a
thinking,
lot.
to you said,
Yes.
can you imagine the synapses and the
I
sort of
know.
storm of electrical
I just
play in
I'd
his
love
brain?
to see
I
his
mean,
brain in a
wow.
functional MRI.
Yeah,
while
me
he's
too.
Yeah.
doing
I think it was your namesake. I think it was Joe Satriani. I think it was Satch
Satriani?
that said, it's these guys that are just flying through the cosmos, doing their thing and kind of going, why is everyone looking at me? Oh, well, I get, and I from all the people that are most inspirational to me, I get that thing, that they're just, just in a different, they're just wired different. I mean, Prince, all these, which makes
You mentioned Dali as well. So.
yeah,
Perfect example.
Picasso or Frida Kahlo or whoever. It's
Right.
They've tuned into a different frequency and are just well enough to be able to bring that back to the rest of us and
Yeah.
inspire the rest of us, and that's a blessing, and those are the people that we need to support. I know so many people tried to support Jaco when he was really kind of in a great place, because you want to give that kind of genius support and whatever, but then somebody their brain chemistry just gets to a point where they are destroying themselves. But in the process of doing what they're doing, they changed the rule book.
Didn't he die in a bar fight or something like that?
Kind of.
He basically went up to a bouncer and was just saying, beat the hell out of me, because I think he knew he was done.
Death
And it's
by
the same
bouncer.
thing that
Right?
Yeah,
Death by
bouncer.
bouncer.
was it Parker died when he was 35, and
Charlie Parker?
yeah, and he looked like he was 60 or whatever,
And Jimmy when
they
he was
said, well, what's
27.
why are you so down, and why are you doing heroin? On the one hand, it's like he said, wait till somebody does your shit and makes money off it, and you don't, something kind of to that effect.
yeah.
And I think Jaco arrived at the same place, because I think when you're doing a lot of drugs, and this is stuff I've just read as an avid reader of all this stuff, is you can still play when you're high. You're just not creating anything new. And I think those guys are like, I did all this. What do I do now? It's hard.
Yeah.
I mean, I think even Jimmy faced that,
Well-
somebody like Joni Mitchell faced it by like completely changing her thing. There's this full confessional songwriting that about 75, 76, she went with more jazz direction and lyrics that were less ultra kind of confessional and a whole different jazz direction.
Right.
And really, changed and confounded her audience and followed her muse. Seriously, she lost a lot of, audience, but that's what she wanted to put out.
I think there's a sort of a fine line when it comes to substances, drugs and whatnot, types of drugs, also quantities, experience, state-dependent memory, and all these things. They're all kind of, flow into the picture, because, you definitely see people being able to cope and be really, really high and play, like Miles Davis and John Coltrane, heroin and cocaine, and they're in a certain state and they're just these masters and they're producing amazing things. And that's just maybe what you're saying, like kind of maintaining something. But then there's also examples of where, say, psychedelics came into the picture and it altered the way they perceived what they were doing in such a way that it comes out quite beautiful. Like as LSD came into the picture for a lot of bands like the Beatles or the Doors or something like that. I mean, it really seemed to kind of shift the the sound in a really significant way that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, the way you're thinking.
it
It shapes the way
definitely-
you see things.
It definitely opened doors, for every person that it opened doors for the Hendrixes and for
Yeah.
George Harrison, Beatles, and all that. There were guys like Skip Spence from the Moby Grape, or Syd Barrett from the Floyd. That
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Started on the same journey, and because of their brain chemistry, went out quickly and
Yeah.
did not return.
Definitely.
So there's all that. But
Certainly
the other
some
thing I think
disaster stories in there.
of too.
For sure.
Or yeah, and like of creativity stunted because it was a bad reaction. But the one thing that I have come to appreciate in time, because it was not of my time, was just how ubiquitous and commonplace cocaine was. Like a party favor in the 70s, and it was everywhere. It was like, here's your food, here's some champagne, would you like a line? It's not that way. I mean, we have a huge opioid problem and fentanyl and people that want to escape their reality and so forth. But I don't think cocaine was perceived the same. That's my impression anyway from that time. It was more like a party favor. Everybody was doing it, and it was very easy to hook because it was everywhere. And I don't see that so much like in the last, I would say, 20. People still have it, but it's not like, just basically out of the table or out, or
Maybe they're
whatever.
just not offering it to you because they think
yeah,
you're a spy or an undercover police officer or
I was
something.
in those circles.
Maybe it's just too expensive now. You know?
There's something. I'm not like a cocaine magnet, that's for sure.
Although you are Peruvian, so I don't know.
Yeah, there you go. And we're going to get into that too later.
Well, you were talking about genius, and these people that can do these amazing things, and it reminded me, since we talked about Alan Watts earlier, another Alan Watts quote where he's talking about a Zen poem, and I have it right here, and I think it's sort of perfect to what you're describing. Wild geese do not intend to cast their reflection. The water has no mind to retain their image. It's that idea that something that is true and, dare I say, authentic, does what it does because it does what it does. And if somebody else is going to really enjoy it, then they get to enjoy it. But it's being itself because it's being itself. It's not being itself so that somebody else will enjoy it.
Yes.
Yes. And I think that's why we always resonate with an artist who's really being an artist. They're really being themselves.
Yes.
There's something magical about that I just love.
I totally agree. I think people in general are attracted to or resonate with people in general that are being authentic. There's something about that frequency that a person resonates when they're comfortable and doing whatever it is they do, whether it's art or science, but they're just being authentic and they're comfortable. So they're giving that gift to people.
Yeah, there's a great quote. I'm going to try to paraphrase. Not in the Miles Davis autobiography, but the biography where Marcus Miller is talking about being in Miles's band around 81, 82 when he came out of the self-imposed kind of 6-year drug haze that he was in between 75 and 81. And Miles knew that he was going to come in for some critical drumming because that's what people do, especially he'd been off the scene for a while. And for a lot of the people that loved kind of blue or loved, anything in the 40s or 50s, Bitches Brew and all the 70s stuff had been an absolute, like, they hated him and they hated the whole thing, one chord vamp for 45 minutes and then he walks off stage. To get back to a more modal kind of, maybe more African thing, maybe more street thing, they just hated it. So Marcus said something to the effect of, Miles, how do you deal with all the criticism? And he said, the one thing you learn is to truly just be yourself and speak your truth and do your thing. I learned that from Miles because he says everybody's going to criticize. And if you're not doing yourself and you're doing somebody else's stuff and then they criticize you, you're going to feel lower than you ever thought you could. So at least if you're going to do it and you're going to invite that kind of criticism, do your own thing and at least it'll be towards you. And the philosophy that we also had in the band years ago is we began seeing some negative reviews on some site. I will remember. It was Radio Paradise. That's what I'll put out there. And we began to see some people that were actually kind of taking up the piss, really saying some not nice things. And I was like, that's awesome. We're reaching beyond our audience. We're reaching beyond our safety zone.
Nice reframe.
And other people are hearing us that are outside the circle. And I'm bummed, whatever, they don't like it. But, oh my gosh, so many other people do seem to like it. And we're getting to a newer audience. And that's one of the prices, is like, that's cool. I suppose if that's all you were getting, that would be very depressing.
Well, obviously, but that's such a great frame of mind to have.
But you take that as a sign, okay, that people are listening. At least they're taking the opportunity to apply critical faculties and going, and
there's always people that are going to criticize. The internet now is just people criticize just
trolls because they have nothing,
and that's got nothing better to do.
And that's become part of the culture. But I think there will always be those kind of things. But I think there is a limited time where there's any kind of fulfillment from doing that. And at some point, well, you either get it or you don't, but you're not contributing anything. And I think you can be that and you be a younger person and be a troll, and that kind of sucks. And at some point you realize that doesn't work for you anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's very idealistic on your part. I think some people can troll for their whole life.
Some people will be trolled, but enough people, I think, will also come to the realization that it doesn't really help, and I'm here in this like basement apartment, and I'm really lonely. Maybe it's time to kind of change my latitude. And if we can get 20 to 30% of people to do that and change that just by seeing a good show and lifting them out and helping them, by doing that, helping them find some authenticity in themselves, where like there's this, as we say, the spark of the divine, right? And the Ecclesia Gnostica,
right?
As we say, as I've heard say,
as it is said.
As it's said, yes. Thank you. If you can find a way to turn that key, to their authenticity, then that's a pretty fantastic thing, and you can do that with art. You can unlock a mind or two.
Well, yeah,
and that's awesome.
Remember, one of the primary meanings of authenticity is to be self-authoring. I really like that you framed it the way you did about how we're reaching beyond what we're used to. In a sense, we're reaching an additional audience because here we have this criticism coming at us, and that shows that people are listening to us that wouldn't normally listen to us. And you mentioned earlier about expanding beyond your comfort zone. And I think it's also about expanding beyond your framework or beyond your pattern. So when you go beyond the pattern that you're used to, you're actually in territory that you once were not in. And what we like to say on this show is expand your comfort zone, not get beyond your comfort zone, just because it's a subtle shade of difference in those two phrases.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, that's
great.
a good way to put it. Yeah. Absolutely.
Oh boy, you bring up so much important stuff. Something I say on stage all the time is vocal music is about the singer, but instrumental music is about the listener. So you can imagine, you're being delivered lyrics about how hard it is to live in the city, or I love you so much, or whatever, and you get where they're coming from, and you get the emotion of it, and you're feeling Joe Cocker or Mick Jagger or whoever, you're feeling them tell you what they're feeling and how we're going to have a good time, and look at Brown Sugar, look at the girl, you're receiving all this information, you're going, okay, that's the story he's telling me. Whereas with instrumental, you write the story.
That's true.
If you are so inclined to do it.
Wow.
So
Good point.
that's thing number one. Thing number two is I personally am very conscious of energy projection. Jim on my right is like a gunslinger, and his focus is like fantastic. Doesn't smile a lot. That's one of the pet peeves he gets. Like, I wish you'd smile more. And he's like, I'm in the moment. I'm worried about smile. I'm worried about presenting the best I can do, and that's what I'm going to do. And a hero of mine, Eric Johnson, is very much the same way. He tries to be a conduit. It's like, it's cool. Lisa's a little more in my school in that it's like I would just as soon be playing with the Ramones. I like a lot of energy. I like to see jumping around. I like to see movement. I like to see that engagement. But we're doing a Spanish guitar band, so it's almost like a fusion thing. And Tim is completely like groove committed behind us. He's like a grounding. And
is he the
Lisa's
percussionist?
He's a drummer.
Yeah, he's a drummer.
Gotcha.
And he's just nailing it. So I see myself as a conduit of the energy we're projecting to the audience so we can have a communion and they can give it back. And we're not going to reach everybody, but we don't need to reach everybody. You know, like if the buddy guy says, you know, use your eyes and look at the back, or Bon Jovi or whoever, you know, we're not playing large places like that, but we play to 5,000, 10,000 people, whatever. And you're trying to reach that person. That's my job. Like, okay, this person, talk to this person, try to reach them. And so you create a very, very conscious of creating an energy flow. You don't always get to do it. Sometimes the sound isn't right. Sometimes your equipment is a little broken. Sometimes Liza might be distracted, or Jim might be distracted, or something. But if you can get all the conditions pretty close to right, get about 60, 70% there. The best shows are when it's 95 or 100% there. The sound is perfect. The audience is with you. We had a show in Reston, Virginia last year that it was at least 7,000, 10,000 people.
Nice.
And they were like this. And it wasn't because like I'm Mick Jagger or anybody else in the band is like Eddie Van Halen or anything. It was just the flow. They were predisposed to flow. We were in particularly good place. The weather cooperated, the sound. And when all that came together, we had 2 one-hour sets of absolute controlled mayhem.
Beautiful.
And it was just perfect.
And people wanted to get up and dance, and they wanted to be a part
from
of
the
it.
from the first beat, it was like boom.
And
Nice.
you know, we get a lot of people, and I really appreciate that. A lot of fathers, I get a lot of women that are very supportive of me. They just come up and say, God, I love seeing a woman up there. But what I love is seeing fathers bring their little girls up and point at me.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
that
See,
is
you can
so
be that.
great.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
You're just pointing and saying, look,
Yeah.
you could do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and
That's beautiful.
back east, we also have a guy named Bruno Nasta that plays with us. And
The
he's,
same one that books the National Gallery of Art.
Okay.
and he's a bigger than life concert violinist, and he loves playing with us. He plays Hungarian violin, and he improvises, and he's just fits right in with us. So he plays, and he takes amazing solos, and then he gets to the front of the stage and just takes a grandiose bow, and people love him. And
Super
that's,
charismatic and just a wonderful guy.
you know, another thing that we add to our show, and it just pulls people in. And a lot of those shows back east, people are just so excited, and it's warm out, and you know, it's
But
just
that'll
it's
happen
fun.
at the Levitt too, and at Mill Pond and some other places out here too. So wow,
That's nice.
I love that you're aware of this philosophy that you bring, that you're making it about your listener. You know, that's just beautiful. I love that idea, because like we spoke about earlier, the music that I put on to change my mind for whatever work or play that I'm supposed to be doing, right? It's instrumental music. I never choose music that has vocals in it when I'm trying to accomplish tasks.
Yeah,
Because
there you go.
the music is about, that music needs to be about me and my state and what I'm trying to do. And I don't like to study or learn when I hear vocals on. I don't like to listen
It's
to music
hard.
that sounds like a vocal.
Satch, you are the lyrics.
There you go. Look at that. Beautiful.
you just you just gave him the title of his book.
You are the lyrics.
I am
the
the lyric.
lyrics.
Yeah.
Nicely done. I have some questions.
Sure.
Well, let me ask you this. Would you mind kind of explaining the name of your band, how you came up with that? What does that mean? What does that say?
Oh, well, it's Incendio means fire or arson in Spanish, Italian, and Portuguese. And when we were coming up with the name of the group, we were talking about, we were driving, and we were saying, and I was saying, you know, our music's this, it's that, it's fiery. And I looked at him and I said, so how do you say fire in Spanish?
Fuego.
And he said, fiore. And then he said,
Fuego, yeah.
and then he said, Incendio. And I was like, oh, that's a good name for a group, Incendio. So we called Jim and said, what do you think about Incendio? And that was it.
And that was 1999. So that was years before the Harry Potter spell.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, that's right.
The other thing.
Incendio.
Like, you look us up, and it's like that or the Harry Potter spell. I'm like, oh, great.
Yeah.
So what is the? You speak Spanish, yes?
Yes, but both my parents are Peruvian. It was my first language.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a little more about that in a moment. So as far as the word incendio versus fuego, is there a nuance of difference in the two words, or
There is a difference insofar as it has different meanings in the different culture. In at least in Peru, you wouldn't look at, and I think most of South America, you wouldn't look at a forest fire and say "en fuego." You'd say it's a fire, incendio. It's a fire, as opposed to put on the light, pon el fuego. I think I couldn't exactly tell. I just know because I learned kind of
from using
Spanish from just by hearing it
Yeah.
at home and from the family first. But that was always been my impression of the distinction between the two. For me, incendio is a raging fire, like a building or a forest. But it was, I mean, that much thinking didn't go. I don't know if it went into incendio. Just sounded more, sounded cooler from the outset.
Yeah, when we said fuego for the name of a group, and then incendio was just like, oh,
Fuego's better for like an economy car.
yeah.
Sometimes, but actually, in English, an incendiary device.
Exactly.
Is
It had
something
those
that causes fire,
connotations, so it
explodes,
made
right?
sense from
or to
early,
be
yeah.
incendiary language, to use incendiary language. I mean, it's the idea of starting a fire. So in a way, you guys are starting little fires
Wherever
of
we go.
inspiration everywhere you go, and
Yes.
and that's pretty cool.
Yes,
I like that.
We played somewhere once. Was it Colorado? And there was a fire that started.
Oh, you know what?
that's
You
right.
guys are responsible for that. That's
And
all
they
I'm
had
going to
to-
say.
Arsonists.
They had to.
Total
and
arsonists.
They came. Oh, there was a bunch of us in the back in the green room, and he came and got us. He said, "You got to get out. There's a fire." I'm like, "Get out of here." He's like,
shut
"No,
up."
there really is."
God, it was either
Shut the front door.
It was Montrose or Montrose somewhere was Paonia. It was down
Oh, yes.
like Deer Alley, where apparently deer notoriously like jumped back and forth across the highway, and both on the way and on the way back, it was like, oh my God, we're like 30, 40 miles an hour. But so then we get to this place, and it's somewhere online. You can see
Oh,
the thing.
the curtains were too close to the lights.
Yeah.
So they had to empty us all out. We hadn't started yet. Get the smoke out, and then we came back
Air
in.
out
and-
the theater,
and we
which was
played.
like
Wow.
a small 100-seat, 200-seat theater, and then we played. It was crazy.
Wow. Now,
Wow.
Funny.
do you have a song that you think captures the spirit of catching fire that you do?
Oh, I'd say quite a few.
All right, because
Yeah.
I think we'd love to hear one.
Yeah. What's one of your favorites?
Probably like super fiery. I would say was
Jocko y Paco.
Okay, so why don't we listen to Jocko y Paco?
Wow, I am on fire. Are you, Satch?
That was pretty awesome.
Bring me a bucket. That was awesome.
Gosh, wow. No,
That is so weird that the reaction to our music is always "bring me a bucket."
Oh my goodness.
Usually,
That's right.
Yeah.
that was like bad
I should have
shrimp.
said
What
hose.
happened?
Yeah, I should have said hose.
yeah, my forehead is sweaty now after hearing that.
Call the
Wow.
fire
That's
department.
a genetic condition. That's
Yeah,
it's not our
yeah,
fault.
Yeah, it's rosacea. Yeah.
Seriously, I couldn't help but get up and dance when I heard that.
I know.
mean, it was like,
it was amazing.
yeah.
Wow.
But we're
uplifting.
here, and you probably should put your clothes back on. I'm just saying, for
Yeah.
our,
Hey, it's
for
not
our
a
radio
party
audience,
of,
it's a
you know,
family show. So
It's not a party with the pants. If you're missing your pants, it's a good party, right?
Yeah. Right. Right.
Anybody see my pants anywhere?
Yeah. Yeah. Very good.
Cat took him.
Or as Seamus would
pumpkins,
say,
yeah, in the other room.
put your pants on and get out of the tree. Yeah.
Very good. So, I think it's amazing that song was actually about me because there was no vocalist, and I really enjoyed it.
We wrote it
wrote
with
the
that in
lyrics.
mind.
Yeah. I don't know how you knew, but somehow you knew.
And where did that take you to?
Gosh, excitement, inner movement.
Now, see, and that was just kind of an homage to two musicians we love, to Jaco Pastorius and Paco de Lucia. It was the whole thing there was kind of imagining them kind of playing together. So having a kind of a moving bass line, and then like Paco was amazing just at his piccato and playing these really fiery lines. So that was the foundation of doing that. Plus, everybody goes on about Jaco as a player, and he changed everything. But what a composer! I mean, 3 Views of a Secret is one of my favorite tunes, and just he was a beautiful writer. Teen Down, so many beautiful Liberty City, so many great tunes.
Wow.
Fun little Jaco plug.
I was a big Weather Report fan.
People ask, like, I'm a huge Hendrix fan. I've been collecting him for since I was 13, and now you can get. It's funny. He's like when I was a kid, it's like, oh, you look for that bootleg, you look for that rare tape. Now all of it is on YouTube. So the sense of
right.
discovery of a new thing is not what it was when we were searching for bootlegs when we were kids and find LA Forum, find Rubber Dubber, or get the Zeppelin Blueberry Hill or whatever. Now it's all
available
out there. You can get it. That having been said, probably my favorite CD amongst everything we have is Jaco Birthday Party. And if people haven't heard that CD, is just unbelievable.
I haven't heard that part.
It was
CD at all.
as the ad says, the surprise party that he threw for himself at a club in I think Fort Lauderdale, and somebody they just backed up the 24-track truck in, and it was the concept of the band was drummer, bass player, and big band. No other harmonic instrument, no guitar, no piano. It was just that. And basically they sketched, Larry Warlow, the arranger, sketched out all the arrangements. They went and they just played it. And they may have had one other gig or did whatever, but oh my God, it's Peter Erskine on drums, who's his longtime friend, but it's got the Michael Brecker and Bob Mincer are both playing saxophone, and they're both amazing. So one usually follows the other. So you get this two amazing jazz saxophonists, and with completely different conceptions, and each one just pushes it higher. It's really, really weird to hear a recording where you have two like lead saxophonists doing completely different things, and they're both insanely great, and it's just amazing playing. When you hear like. Oliver will know this as a guitar. When you're like soloing and it's just bass and it's drums, you're going to be outlining and doing arpeggiations and all that. But when you have like a bass player that's as dense as Jaco doing all these kind of crazy arpeggiations and all that against somebody else who's kind of doing the same thing, the fabric that they weave is really crazy on that album. It's beautiful. So, okay, that's my plug. Go buy Jaco the Birthday Party. You'll be glad you did, you young whippersnappers.
I'll be doing it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, no, you two are a couple.
We are.
Have you written anything that maybe is your song?
Well, he wrote a song for me off of one of our Book of Storms CDs, one of our pop CDs called The One.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice.
I would say we're very, very good midwives of our material together. So, I mean, all usually if she wrote it, it has my stamp on it in some way. So, like Jaco Paco is one of the very rare things that like I wrote fully. And we write together with Jim sometimes too, but amongst the most popular songs that we have is Ledges Road which she wrote. Barcelona and Tango, certainly some things Jim wrote as well. But Ledges Road is a song where I just played the melody and got out of the way. And she scored the violin and viola and recorded it. So that's really her baby. And that's one of our most, if not our most popular song from downloads. So sometimes it's like, you could really do that thing in the bridge. And then other times it's like, that's done. So if nothing else, it's like, you're good. That's great. I have nothing else to add to this. And so that happens a lot.
We write a lot together.
Yeah,
obviously.
sure.
But if you're saying that we've written for each other, he wrote that song for me, the one. Did I write something specific for him? I don't know. Did I?
Besides all of them.
I like to think pretty much all of it is devotional music to me.
Yeah.
That's how I think of it.
It's instrumental
That's how I
music. It's all
cry
about
myself
him.
to sleep
Yes.
at night.
Nice.
I will say that because this gets into another realm of things, but just briefly, because I'm going to answer the question you haven't asked. How the band, even before that, how we met. I had a Steely Dan cover band that we were just talking about this today, actually. Sadly, unfortunately, I had a friend that was killed by a drunk driver, and this guy just killed 4 people, one of whom was a very close friend. The other 3 were either friends or acquaintances. And so we got a band together to kind of play the wake and honor them musically, and we were all in our early 20s, and it was just terrible. And then that evolved into something that we wanted to keep doing just because it was fun playing, and it was primarily Steely Dan covers. A lot of it, because I love Steely Dan and wanted to play that music. And everybody else in the band did too. And we needed a bass player. So the guy we had, who's still a pal, Leo Valenzuela, wanted to go do other things. And we knew we needed a bass player. And so the first night I met her and her fiancé. And he was a lovely guy. It was sad to see that they broke up. And then I met her, and I think we did a gig or two, and it was like, oh my God, she's gorgeous, and she's really talented and really cool. And the thing that actually did it in terms of like, oh my gosh, this person is very special, is I came to her house, and she had a lot of the books that are on the bookshelf here. And I was like, and I thought, this is not a mirror gazer. This is not a person that's sitting. This is a person that is constantly questioning. And I find that very moving, and I like that, and that's kind of what started it.
She's a
but the reason
scrying
I'm giving you the background to this is another thing that was a kind of a seminal moment for us was we were offered the chance. So we'd been playing in bands in a couple of years, and I was not going to do music professionally. I worked at MCA Records. I worked in Spanish television, and I was a decent guitar player, but I didn't know how to break in. And then I began sitting in with her, and people was like, "Oh, okay, he can play," and that was cool. And so we were presented the opportunity to write music for Entertainment Tonight. And I'm like, we have a dear friend, Jeff Floro, and he was kind of a mentor, and it had always been like, well, for this thing you need this amp sound, and for this you need this 12 string, and if you're going to do this, which is all really sound. If you're going to get those sounds, you need that thing. And I was like, well, we're going to need this. We're going to do that. And Liza said, look, grabbed me by the lapels, lifted me off the ground. Considering I'm taller, she was holding me up. I'm kidding. She said, look, somebody with a really crappy recorder, like a handheld thing, is going to do something really bad, and they're going to get the gig because they tried. And I was in my head, I'm like, wow, we need this, we need that. And I was like, no, you don't. You just need to do it. We got the gig. And we did 200 minutes of music for Entertainment Tonight.
Wow.
That then from the Paramount Library went into all their other shows. So we got our start year statements, and it's like Oprah Winfrey shows, Star Trek, Law and Order, I mean, one after it was amazing. And so because of that simple gesture of trying to do that, we got all this music. And so you figure 200 minutes of music there, writing the first 2 Book of Storm CDs, now half to 2/3 of the Incendio material, and all the other music library stuff that was written that have been in all these other movies and stuff like that. We've written a lot of material, mostly together, some apart, just like, what do you think? Okay, let's just, get it done. So I think we went from like, I wrote this for you, to, oh my God, there's a deadline, to, I got this fragment of melody. What do you think? So every version, what do you think of this beat? What do you think of this melody fragment? Hey, I kind of like this chord. Oh my God, what you're playing. Stop what you're doing. Or forcing, the craft part of it is forcing yourself to wake up out of a dream. Oh my, okay, I'm asleep and I'm dreaming, but this is a really cool melody. I've done this about twice or three times now. They're becoming Incendio tunes. I couldn't even tell you which ones they were, but I know the process happened to will yourself out of sleep and groggily walk over to a recorder, get some semblance of the idea, or actually get a guitar, get some semblance of the idea, and then try to go back to sleep. That you need to do that. You need to just honor that visitation,
Get it out.
and get it on tape.
Yeah, because you go back to sleep and
You will
I've
lose
got
it.
this
It's
great
gone.
idea. You go back to sleep, you wake up and it's gone.
I've lost
so
5
you,
to 10.
you got to get up and do it.
Wow.
Yeah.
But we're lucky in that we can write together. You know, a lot of people can't, and we could from the beginning. It was very easy when one of us has an idea, the other one just is on the same wavelength. The other person doesn't take it like to some place. The other person just goes, I don't even know what you're doing with my song. But it's just like an extension. And we had that from the beginning. And we have that with Jim, too. You know, we work well together. And as you guys know, I mean, not all writers work well together.
Oh, yeah.
So
I think
for
that,
sure.
that was lucky that
You guys
we
are
could
very
do that.
fortunate. Yeah.
One
Yeah,
really
absolutely.
good role we have is for her stuff. I think I'm a good melody developer or enhancer. Like we can go this way. They talk about 1% inspiration, 99% perspiration. So I think I help to provide a lot of perspiration. She is a really, really good police officer for me not to rely on the pattern of falling into a bluesy thing, because the place I come from is a blues place. So I will tend to phrase certain melodies, and that she goes, "To blues, stop it."
Well,
And
I
that's-
think
it's
both
good.
of
It's really
us take us out of what's normal for the other one. And the same with Jim. You know, when you write by yourself, you grab on what you normally do. When you write with someone else, they'll go, take it somewhere else, and you go, oh, well, that's cool. I didn't think of that. You know, so you immediately just expand, like what we were talking about.
Wow.
Well, I think
Yeah.
one thing that goes back to the notion of servicing is I think I am an awesome interpreter. I think more so than kind of writing. I have a okay skill set for writing stuff on our own, and I love melodies. You know, it's like a lot of guitar players. You're like a Hendrix bag, or you're in a Stevie Ray Vaughan bag, or a Van Halen bag, or an Ingrid Malmsteen bag, and that is all good. But listening to a lot of singers and even Tin Pan Alley songs and all that kind of stuff, all that suffuses and going to how do you frame a melody? How do you change that chord to enhance where that melody moves and stuff like that? I think that's a strength that I have. So I can usually enhance what she's doing or what Jim's doing. And they can do this the same for me. Usually that ends up being a good role that I play. Liza has just a gift for some beautiful melodies. And that doesn't always... It's not a common thing. So it's like, okay, and that's what's like I just wrote somebody, just get out of the way. This is great. This is done. Cool. Good. You know, it's easy.
Well, gosh, why don't we hear that? I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, can we?
Give it a
Ledges
listen.
Road?
Absolutely.
Yeah, Ledges Road.
Yeah, let's do it.
It's
We'll
on
give a
Spotify.
and before we play that, we'll give a shout out to our friends who are playing on it. Novi Novak, who played on the first 2 CDs, is playing viola. She was the one who played viola in Blackwater by the Doobie Brothers.
And Raspberry Beret
And she was
by
part
Prince.
of the quartet for
And-
Raspberry Beret and Michael Jackson, some other things. And then Peggy Baldwin on cello, who at the time was out with Yanni, and I think maybe Rod Stewart too, she played with. And so what you will hear when you hear the song is you'll hear the second take. It took them about 20 minutes to do these takes, and they were at home at our house for 2.5 hours, laughing hysterically, sharing stories of being on the road, just listening to the two of them, just like, because musicians are freaks.
And
I'll
they just
I'll leave
laugh.
it at
You
that.
just got to go. You just got to go. Okay, rolling, and then they play.
And they murdered it, and then just back to, did you remember when we went to the and we're like,
So funny.
just rolling. We're rolling.
Wow. Did you say Yanni and Rod Stewart?
Yes.
Now there's a combo for you.
Yeah, I know.
She only performs with them when they play together. No, I have no idea. She's done so much. She's just a brilliant, brilliant cellist.
Awesome. Well, let's do it.
that song makes me appreciate the beauty of life when I hear it. There's really something special in that.
Good. Thank you very
gorgeous.
much.
Yeah, gorgeous.
Yeah. Well, I wrote it about the road that I grew up on in Connecticut, or I should say, I was there till I was 8. We lived out in the country. And so I have just, wonderful memories of being out in the country and just appreciating nature, animals.
Truly
and
idyllic.
It really is.
It's beautiful.
Hiking. And so it's just, had a lot of memories. And that's what came to me when I started writing this song.
Wow.
Yeah.
As Oliver pointed out earlier, the spaciousness in the melody is wonderful because it just pulls me into the images. I could see like what you were talking about. You didn't tell me that's specifically what it was about, but in my mind, I was seeing blue skies and clouds and tops of trees and kind of feeling cozy with someone I loved and just kind of like a peaceful feeling. Just it's funny how you talk about how your mind fills in details when there isn't lyrics.
Yes.
And it's the instrumentation itself as it becomes a background or a tapestry that you fill in with your ideas
absolutely.
and stuff. But it's just it's really really nice.
Thank you. And when I write something like that, I'll sort of get the image in my head of what I'm writing about or what's inspiring me. And I'll pace, and a lot of times just a melody will come to me, and then I'll sing the melody, and I'll harmonize it. And with that piece, I heard strings with it to accompany it, and we just left it like that: 2 guitars and viola and cello.
Well, you described a little bit about your process, how you pace and you let it come. JP, do you have a process?
So it's like respecting the spark. It's less about like any single process than it is about just respecting the spark when it happens. Hey, Mom, sorry, I got to hang up. I have this thing that's going through my head and I have to do it. Or, hey, we're at the dog park. Hey, I need a minute. I'm going to go over there, watch the dogs. I'll be back. And just try. Okay, well, I got something. It may need to lead to nothing. It may lead to something really nice.
Wow. Now, earlier you mentioned some dreams about coming from. Can you remember any of those? Any songs that did come from a dream?
I think Karina's Waltz came
Maybe it's
to
Karina's
me.
Waltz?
Yeah,
Haunted?
I think Karina's Haunted came to me in a dream, that melody.
I love the title.
Yeah. Thanks.
Maybe we got to give that a listen.
I think so because I'm fascinated by this idea of creativity that comes from dreams, and that's not just because we did a dream episode.
Yeah.
but also because we did a dream episode. I'm just fascinated by this
Well,
idea.
that's
it's true.
That's that
It's
whole
true.
thing of finding a way to tap into the subconscious. I mean, I think the great improvisers, I imagine in my mind that Prince had a way of actualizing stuff out of the subconscious because he made generated so much music.
Yeah, he was
that was all
prolific.
very, very different. And so these guys have a way, women, men, whoever, the ones that have just are able to get through all the crap and have a very different, I think in a lot of ways, like regular life is hard. Unless you're Prince and are super wealthy and have had an entourage of people around you that could take care of mundane stuff like breakfast or like the lawn or
Right.
bills, He built a world where
Pancakes.
he could maintain that access. Hendrix could maintain that access. I
think exactly what you were saying is getting out of the way and allowing those melodies to come through you, and it's sort of like when I think of a melody sometimes, or I'm trying to get at a melody, it's like I feel like I'm pushing the notes out of the way that aren't supposed to be there. It's like I'm finding that correct one.
You're like a sculptor chipping away what's not the song.
Yeah,
so to
it's like
speak. Wow.
yeah. And I was talking to somebody else, a young person that was writing, and we were writing with them and helping them get to that. And one of them was like kept stopping and analyzing what he was doing, and I was like, don't do that. Don't stop. Just get it all out. Just write. Just free associate and put it down. And then you can move stuff out of the way. But if you stop and analyze along the way, you stop the process. Your mind gets in there and you lose that flow The flow can have a bunch of junk on it, but if you stop the flow, then you lose that stream of consciousness.
I happen to love our trio album, which I think people have tended to hear less of. And I go back and listen to that and I go, that was a really inspired, cool piece that not as many people know the stuff off that album. And that's good. So it's not always going to be a hit or whatever, but if it satisfies your soul and you know that it can provide healing or good listening to somebody else, then I'm like, that's cool. You know,
We explored a lot of different harmonic writings in that CD than we do on a lot of the other CDs.
The song that we were going to listen to that's inspired
Haunted.
by a dream, Haunted,
Yes.
is on that CD.
So shall we listen to Haunted?
Sure.
Absolutely.
Let's do it. Just beautiful.
Thank you.
Wow.
Born from a dream.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
There's so much that I loved about that. I mean, the use of dissonance, the rhythm, the flourishes that you put in, but not too much. It was just like, wow, I really went somewhere with that.
Good. Thank you. I tend to add more dissonance in my writing. I like that. It speaks to me.
But you
I would
didn't
say, than
really
these
do in
guys.
Ledges Road, but you did
No.
it there and in a few of the others.
Yeah, well, I
Which
don't
once again
always
is
do
that-
it, but I tend to like
But
that
there's
more.
the contrast because you have that in your writings to you can go there or go the other way and add it and still make it musical. That song encompasses a lot, particularly in the live thing, and so I have a story. And the context is something that John McLaughlin said, which was very true. It's like if part of the reason I think he does it and we do it, and we talk about communion in the audience, that thing. But if you can leave everything behind, he goes, even for 10 seconds, 5 seconds, a second of pure inspiration where you're in the music, you've played something, you're inventing something that you haven't played before, you're improvising, and it all comes together, and it's absolutely beautiful. It's a group of notes that you have never played before and will probably never play again, but you're not even there. It's like it was something that he talked about, and it really, really struck me. And I think that's like a drug for musicians. I'm sure actors have the same parallel or visual, or when you really, really hit something that has some sort of perfection that you haven't done before, and hopefully your audience hasn't heard before, and everything comes together. So with that particular song, we were in Eureka, California, doing their Redwood Jazz Festival. And I think it was the second time we were doing it. And basically, it's like a lot of these festivals where they take you around to different venues during the course of like a 3-day festival. One day you're playing at the theater. The next day you're playing, they had this area that was near a boat dock, and it was like a landing. It was really cool. And so they take you around to different places. And the last of the 4 shows that we did, if you say it was Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the last show was at Sunday, I'm going to say at 10 in the morning. In Eureka, and this is in April, so it's still cold and kind of wet. It's like the northernmost part of Northern California before you get to Oregon.
Emerald Triangle.
And we did a show at 10 in the morning in a gay bar. And I mention that because it's important for you guys to know that I have just really a 5th grade sense of humor. Everybody in the band knows that. I'm just such a dork. And they had all these, I'm sure they're appeal. I don't even remember what they were. But on the one hand, the titles of the drinks were absolutely hilarious and bawdy and awful. And I just read one after the other, and it was laughing so hard. We had been there for 2 days. We're kind of tired. We did all the shows. And so we're in this bar. It's designed to have lots of lights and be totally dark. And it has these ridiculous drink names. And we're kind of setting up kind of like groggily. And they had these windows. The whole club was black. They had these windows that were like tinted kind of white. So they were foggy. And it was foggy outside because it's still April. And the fog is rolling in off of this little port. They had the bay, yeah. And so it's just this surreal, indoor, foggy, black with these ridiculous drink names. And we did that a song, and people started dancing through the fog. Between the tinted windows of black, it was like really hard to see, like the audience. And they were like 5 feet away, like dancing. And because it was foggy, you could see like from about the waist up, swaying like this.
So they were waltzing, because that's a waltz.
And it was insane.
At 10 in the morning. It was great.
Wow.
Yeah, in the fog.
What a
So I had this
It was
like
crazy.
so the drink names had made me laugh, and then this absolutely surreal, beautiful, ghostly, haunted house thing that was happening was
Yeah, it was
like,
very ghostly.
this is why. This is part of the reason they do this, is just to be in this absolutely crazy, once in a lifetime thing, and I can recall that, like I can taste it. It's right there because it's just one of those things that, like, that's where it all comes together. Everything that we've done came together for that absolutely beautiful, unique moment.
Wow.
So that's when I hear that song, I think of that particular story and that situation, and go, that's one of the reasons I do this.
That's the like the keys to a deeper level of experience.
Yeah, we were handed the keys to something very, very special, and you just go with it, and you walk away going, that will never happen again. I was there. I was in the center of it, and you don't get that if you play it safe. You have to do some self-exploration and learning and look inside yourself and make some stupid mistakes and
Take some chances.
Take some chances and do some dumb things.
Nothing ventured, nothing gained, right?
So that you can get to that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You got to jump in.
So what are the projects that are important to you right now that you're going? You mentioned earlier that you're kind of trying to facilitate other musicians. I mean, how do people find out about that or explore these things that you're currently working on?
Well, if they want to find us, they can always email us through Incendio Band or through our duo site, Carbé and Durand, our last names.
CarbéandDurand.com.
How is that spelled?
Carbe, my last name, and A-N-D, and Durand, D-U-R-A-N-D, JP's last name. That's our duo. And you can reach us through that or through Incendio. And we do produce other artists. And right now we're working with two brothers, very talented young guys, the Licata brothers, and we're working recording their CD right now. And it's coming along fabulous. So
They're
we're
Peruvian
excited.
and Italian, and we're Peruvian and Sicilian, so it's a perfect fit. Then we have another. We're working on our album, which will be released in the fall. We'll be touring behind that. At least starting in the summer, we've got to learn the songs and start going out and prepare the CD and master it and go through all those steps and make sure it's and that's a whole other ritual, right? So for everybody listening out there, that all the notion that we get to play with all this stuff is also intertwined with recording yourself and making sure the computer is right and getting the right microphone and doing that's why Thrive and Survive in the music business is I think a cool thing that we're going to be able to provide, because there are so many elements. It's like, what kind of microphone do you use, or where you master, or why is mastering important, and why are you going to do your publishing after that? And once you get that all squared away, what kind of promotion are you going to put behind your album, and are you going to master it for CD and MP3? Are you going to all these things that are kind of mind-boggling, really? It's too much stuff. But it has to be done. And typically the record company used to do that. That's not the case anymore. So if you want to be viable, you got to learn all that stuff.
Yeah.
And you got to make it happen.
So you're Peruvian. We know that Liza's from Connecticut. Where
Yes.
were you from, born, and your ancestry?
I was born in Keesler Air Force Base, Biloxi, Mississippi.
Okay.
Both my parents are from Lima, Peru. Dad came here he was in the Peruvian Air Force. He came here to join the U.S. Air Force, and then went back to get my mom and marry her and bring her to this country. And that was in 1967. And so I was born here, but an aunt and then my grandmother helped to raise both me and my brother, came here. So our first language and our first kind of culture was Spanish language and Peruvian culture, the food, the music, everything.
Wow.
All of my family, cousins, uncles, stuff that you normally grew up with, all of them were in Lima. So, and my parents were not like, they weren't Woodstock, they weren't listening to Stones. My mom still listens to classical music. We were in a bubble.
Wow.
So you're looking for something cultural, it would be like Peruvian culture. So my dad had Montavani records. He had Ventures records, which is interesting because that was the same gateway that Eric Johnson had. And I love Eric Johnson as a guitar player. He listened to early Ventures records. That was the first, that and Tom Jones was the first stuff I heard. I love Tom Jones. You think Tom Jones, a lot of people love Tom Jones. Tom Jones has amazing intonation, is an incredible singer. Yeah. And the funny thing was, I was hearing songs secondhand. I was like, he's singing Yesterday, and he's like really over singing, and it's crazy, but his intonation is great. Who are these Beatles? Why are they Yesterday? Who are they? I'm like,
just some small band.
I'm like music. I'm like 3 or 4 years. I don't know any better because my parents aren't listening to the Beatles, the Stones, and the music of their era. So I came by it all like secondhand. But the nice thing was I get to hear different arrangements really early. Mm-hmm. Like this is what happens if you add horns. This is him doing Blue Eyed Soul, and now you're hearing, him do Turn Off Your Love Light off of the flamenco, and the band is just killing. And so I carry, all that, and then come around. So, the things that I would pick up on, he's doing the 3 underneath on the bass line. So all the little weird arrangement things, those would be the things that I was listening for subconsciously when I was a kid. And I bring that to bear in the band now, arrangement ideas.
Were you raised listening to Ima Sumac?
No, we didn't listen to any Ima Sumac. The traditional Peruvian music would be all Peruvian waltzes. So we had one out, Violines de Lima, we listened to a lot. Trio Los Panchos, which are not Peruvian, but South American. but primarily Los Morochucos and a lot of like Nube Gris, La Flor y la Canela, traditional Peruvian songs. So I listened to a lot of waltz when I was a kid. Then later, I think it was funny because we all came around full circle. Jim started doing this music because he, at the time, was shredding and doing like Ingrid Malmsteen and Vinnie Vincent. Sorry, not Vinnie Vincent. A couple of Steve Morse, Al Di Meola. But he wanted to do it. You know, you go and do that at Borders, they will kick you out. So he wanted to do it in a way that was more accessible. And then he found, you know, these Friday Night in San Francisco, and Otmar Liebert was doing that. So he did that. I really think of myself as a blues guitarist, as electric blues guitarist, like Stevie Ray or Hendrix or B.B. King. Those are the guys that I love the most. And I came around full circle to doing, you know, basically Spanish guitar. And Liza's classical guitarist by training, who loved, you know, John Dowland and 20th century music, Peter Maxwell Davies, and
But
just a bunch
I
of
started by playing Spanish guitar. So
Okay.
I started playing flamenco and Spanish songs. And my father's from Sicily, so we had a lot of opera in the house. And my parents just loved Latin music.
What's your
so-
favorite opera?
Well, I love Puccini.
Okay.
You know, I love a lot of Puccini's operas. I mean, he writes beautiful melodies.
La Traviata is my favorite.
Is it?
Yeah.
she.
I love La Boheme.
Oh, yeah.
But by the time she kind of absorbed all that from a very early age, but she also loved the rock bug, loved and still loves Zeppelin a lot. We both really love Zeppelin, and Floyd, and she used to be in Vixen. When I met her, she was playing guitar for Lindsey Buckingham. She was out on the road with him for 2 years, and so there was this
Saying
whole.
I'm musically schizophrenic. That's
Well, you're just a lunatic like he is.
Yes.
So
It's a perfect match. So she absorbed. She was doing all the rock, and in a sense, has also come back home, which is an interesting thing. Incendio kind of brought us back around to all those waltzes, and because I would say the undercurrent of our guitar playing is not a flamenco, really a flamenco thing, although we do it on flamenco guitars. The undercurrent of what I tend to contribute, if it's not a bluesy kind of texture, it's the notion of playing the melody like I was singing it, number one, and number two, phrasing it more like Trio Los Panchos, or more like the major South American guitar players, of which they were like, you hear Spanish guitar or South American guitar, it's a real specific kind of plucking and moving and all that, and it's like, oh yeah, that thing. I do that thing. I know I've been listening to that thing all my life. I just didn't know I'd be using it.
Right.
So it's all full circle, much like this conversation.
Yeah. It's full circle.
There you go.
I'm headed to Peru soon, basically next month. And you mentioned Lima. Well, my middle name is Martin, and I was named after Martin de Porres.
Oh, wow.
So, you know, for those who don't know, he was from Lima, Peru. He was the first canonized black saint in the Catholic religion. He's the patron saint of healers, healthcare workers, and paranormal powers and things like that. So,
is that why your mother named you that? I mean,
actually, it was my father
Your father
who named me
you?
that. Yeah, Martin, as far as I understand. But for a long time, I've wanted to go to Peru, and now it's finally happening. Yeah, I've read a lot about the shamanism there and the spirituality, and there's ancient temples in Machu Picchu, and the Amazon, all these things.
You know,
So
when
I'm
we're
gonna
ready,
go
we're going to have
soon.
to turn this around and interview you guys for 2.5 hours. I thought this is so fascinating. Oh, this is amazing.
You know, his JP's
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
uncle went to a shaman because he was having some kind of trouble, and she did passing the egg and that.
Yeah, the limpia with the egg.
Ponerle el huevo. Yeah.
Yeah, well,
And-
yeah, see.
With that, I can't remember. Did he say he should move to Spain, or what? Somehow he recommended that he should go to Spain, or yes, it was a good idea for him to go to Spain, and he did.
He did, and it worked out really, really well. Yeah, that was wild. I'm thinking now, upon reflection of our conversation, I must have a lot of lunatic relatives. I have one lunatic relative named Jose Duarte. Hi, Jose. He decided to move to Boston, where I guess he met his wife there, who was also a restaurateur. And they decided to open a restaurant in the Italian section of Boston, the most competitive. Like, why in the world would you ever do that? they had like the #1 restaurant there. It was
Wow.
Peruvian infused Italian food.
Whoa.
It's
It's
Sounds great.
unbelievable. It's
I'm so
called,
hungry.
It's called Taranta.
Sign me up.
And it's in Boston. And the reason I mention him is because you can't just go have ayahuasca with anybody.
Right.
And he's been known to lead tours down there. So if you're still looking around you got to choose the right shaman.
Yeah.
Come talk to me after the show.
Yeah, absolutely. No, there's a lot of tourism, and that brings a lot of opportunism. And just because someone calls themselves a shaman does not necessarily mean they are, and also it doesn't necessarily mean that they have scruples. A true shaman obviously would, but and unfortunately, I do have connections there to
Good.
The real
you
deal.
probably must. Yeah.
I do, but thank you, and who knows, maybe I'll end up meeting someone in that lineage or something too.
Ours would help if there was a good like food connection that you wanted on the side. And just by way of saying, because you might, if you've already been to Lima.
Not yet.
Okay, not yet. And Liza has known this firsthand. Food is such an important part of the culture.
Yeah.
You're going to eat a lot of food in Peru.
look
And it's going to
forward
be
to
some of
that.
the best food you've ever had in your life. And I grew up with it, so I didn't think about it,
Mm-hmm.
but it is really amazing food.
Awesome.
Across
I look
the
forward to
board.
it. I'm a total foodie. Satch knows this.
Oh yeah,
What's-
and I'm a foodie.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, what's the one in Cerritos? There's one. What that is? Oh my gosh, El Rocoto.
Oh, is that really good?
Fantastic Peruvian food.
Good to know.
Yeah, El Rocoto right there.
I've only been to Inca Grill.
Rocoto.
That's
I'm
all.
sorry,
I've only been to Inca Grill in Costa Mesa, but
I haven't tried it.
Yeah, been there.
yeah.
The ceviche in El Rocoto is off the hook.
But his cousin's restaurant is also all green, to the
Renewable,
point
yeah.
that they
Really?
go visit where everything is grown and make sure that it's free trade, that the people are being treated correctly.
Harvested at the right
the
time.
wine is all
Wow,
green.
that's
And he
fantastic.
goes around and he supports other restaurateurs and teaches them how to get going.
Wow.
We need
Yeah.
more of that.
It's
for sure.
amazing.
Yeah, he's an
We need
awesome
lots
dude.
more of that.
Yeah,
Big time.
really.
Yeah.
Yeah, more people
great.
doing that would be very helpful.
Yeah,
especially these
absolutely.
days.
Yeah. Creating the right tribe. That's been a theme.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He gets that, and he's doing it in the food world, which is really cool.
Well, it's. I was thinking about this recently, and it's been a thought that's popped in quite a lot for the last 20 years, probably. And it's that, it's wonderful when like attracts like. We got, like in this room, we have a room full of amazing people, amazing souls, and with different skills and thoughts. And in life, I've always thought, well, it seems like the quote unquote bad guys stick together. They're, doing subversive things and making money hand over foot and supporting each other and ousting good people because the good people don't realize that they have this community that they can connect with. Maybe some of them lack confidence. Maybe some of them lack an understanding about sticking together. There's an opportunity for tribe building when you just even understand, like, I don't know exactly how I may be able to help these people, but I know that some way, in some form, I'll be able to help this person. And when you create that opportunity, I think capitalism can work, right?
Yes.
But obviously, with every system, there are some dark sides to it. When capitalism goes to the extreme so far that there are no brakes, no controls, and you get mega corporations and all this kind of stuff, crony capitalism. All of a sudden, the mom and pop shop that has a really great idea can't do it because there are 5 other mega corporations that are going to squash them. So it makes for a lack of diversity and a lack of a true free market. So I'm thinking about this idea right now and how it's wonderful when you get an opportunity to see that you can attract more and more people who are of like mind. Like, I think you guys are on the show, so technically there's overlap there. You're part of the Authenticity tribe. We're part of the Incendio tribe.
Yeah.
And there's this thing now. And out in the world, however we support each other and recognize each other and acknowledge each other is going to be beneficial to everybody who connects with us.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's just a mutually beneficial situation.
yeah.
Satch, this conversation I was thinking earlier, it's like we covered health, creativity, and the quest for excellence all in this one show.
All of them.
Yeah,
That's great. That's
When are we doing it again? We have so much more to cover.
Yes, we do.
Tomorrow.
And we have to interview you guys.
That'll be great. Yeah, that'll be great.
Oh my gosh.
Well, awesome.
You guys have been lovely and amazing. I've enjoyed every moment.
What an opportunity
Thank
to
you,
talk.
us
This is-
too.
yeah,
Thank
it's
you.
been
Thank
super
you.
fun.
Yeah, we could easily keep going
Oh yeah, we could.
and
We
going
could.
and
We could.
going and going.
But you know, it was creative and it was thought-provoking, stimulating, and I think we went somewhere with this conversation.
We did.
Yeah, get the
Many places. We
Yeah.
went many
Well,
places
and
with this
many
conversation.
somewheres.
the five of us
Yes.
created an artistic manifesto. It's
Right.
cool.
Yeah.
Right. And like any good song or musical piece, there must be that beautiful ending.
Yes, a beautiful ending. That's
Right.
I thought you were going to say we should end before we all start playing Louie Louie, which is also a totally valid point.
That
Yes,
is a
please.
beautiful ending before we start playing.
Yes,
the
please.
Yes.
You've been listening to The Authenticity Show with your hosts, Carlos Casados and Satch Purcell. Very, very special thanks to our guests, J.P. Durand and Liza Carbé from the band Incendio. If you'd like to connect with Incendio, you can find their website at incendioband.com. This show is produced by Oliver Altine. That's me. Our theme music is composed by Oliver Altine. That's also me. Make sure to subscribe to the show on iTunes, Android Market, Stitcher. Check us out on YouTube, and you can find our website at authenticityshow.com. Thank you very much for listening, and have an authentic day.